Hey, good morning. Scott Luton and Greg White with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing fine, and I'm not going to debate you around toilet paper demand percentages.
I can't wait to hear the new number.
Okay. All right. We're going to dive into that later. But today it's all about supply chain buzz right here on Supply Chain Now. It's our weekly roundup of some of the key stories and developments that take place across global industry and why they're important. So, Greg, looking forward to another episode here today. And as a special treat, we've got a special guest. In fact, Greg, a repeat guest.
Yes. Kevin
L. Jackson, COO with SourceConnecte, is joining us about 12:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And Greg, I feel like we've already gotten a wealth of education just on the pre-show with Kevin.
We have, really. I mean, I hope we get to share. Well, I know we'll get to share this with all of the viewers, and I'm excited and thankful for everything he's done with and for us. So,
absolutely. Okay, so stay tuned for what should be an outstanding and very informative conversation that will help raise your supply chain IQ. But quick programming note, as everyone is coming in here. Good morning, Mir. Yes. Good morning, Benjamin. Good morning, Stefan. Great to have y'all here as always.
Yeah.
Quick programming note. Today, we published our 400th podcast episode. And Greg, it was a pretty special approach we took. Tell folks more.
Well, we gave everybody at Supply Chain Now and some people that folks have never met, right, the opportunity to share their favorite episodes and moments and, what's made it so special for them going forward. So it's really kind of an outpouring of our love for you folks and the episodes and the incredible talents that we've interfaced with. And I hope everybody likes it because it's all us. I mean, it's genuine. Let me assure you that.
Yes, the whole team. That's what made it so special to hear some of what they had taking place between the ears and some of their favorite episodes, and even more importantly, why. Yeah. So really a lot of good stuff there. Hey, okay. So before we dive into our first story, and of course, as always, you can find and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Greg, let's say hello to a bunch of folks here. And I apologize in advance if I get any names incorrect. I hate mispronouncing any name, but
you want
please
me to take any of them.
Yeah, please. Greg, let's turn the tables. Let you say.
You want me to take it?
Folks.
I'll take a few. Oh man, and the most challenging one. I'm just going to say Guru Mantravati. Welcome aboard, and glad to have you.
And
Annalise Franz is with us. And it's evening. That's right, man. You got to remember that in all over the world, right? And
that's right.
Akib Mushtaq. Welcome. Good morning. He must see Yuhong must be speaking in our time, I guess, or from maybe the West Coast of the States is all I can guess for some of these folks.
Yep. And I've got a couple more coming your way here.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Yep.
Yeah, we see you've got that one. There's nothing tough about that one.
Yep. This is a tricky one.
Tyson. Do we know a Tyson? So Tyson is the only person on the planet who can make talking about pallets even remotely interesting. If you get a chance, go back to, I don't remember what episode it was, but he's with the Pallet Alliance. And again, I think we feel like we talked about Tyson last week too, didn't we?
Well, he's coming back too. Him and Aaron and the Pallet Alliance team will be back with us soon.
A couple shout outs too. I know you already talked to Benjamin Goldklang, right? And I'm sure he's back from his usual run about this time of day. And Stefan Mao, I wanted to let him know that I talked with Polly from Raleigh, Polly from Canaxis, and we are working on our German to be suitable to discuss and speak in German with Stefan.
Outstanding. Hey, Keaton, good morning. Greetings from Atlanta. Great to have you here on LinkedIn. Claudia, your ears may have been burning with that 400th episode. As we found out, Devin Riddle is we're all Claudia Freed fans, but Devin was a big fan of your episode with us from Vegas.
Yeah, good to have you back on here too.
AA from the air capital of the world, which is where, Greg?
Go Shocks. Wichita, Kansas.
That's right. And let's see here. Well, so we're going to try to get to everybody.
Yeah, we might have to come back around.
The dog is back from his road trip. He spent some time up in the North Carolina Blue Ridge Mountains, I believe. Great to have you back in the studio with us, Clay.
Yes, at his secret hideaway in the North Carolina mountains.
That's right. All right. So
let's tell these people something they don't know. What do you say?
Right, let's do it. All right. So we're going to do what we always do. We're going to walk through a variety of headlines on the front end, and then we'll dive into our segment with Kevin L. Jackson. Y'all stick around for that. It's going to be a great, informative interview with Kevin. Great to reconnect with him. And then we'll wrap up with a couple of headlines. But for starters, our first headline of the day, e-commerce battles are just about to heat up even more, Greg. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
So as reported by Recode, Walmart is launching Walmart Plus in July. And this has been in the works for a while.
Yeah.
It was supposed to initially launch in March or April and got pushed back due to the pandemic. As you might suggest, or as you might kind of understand, it's a subscription service, much like Amazon Prime, which has 15 years. It was launched about 15 years ago. So
wow.
Walmart Plus has a lot of catching up to do. Can you believe it's 15 years old?
That is amazing, isn't it? I mean, think about that. That was pre-iPhone.
Yes. It's unbelievable.
As long as we're making historical milestones, that was pre-iPhone. That's pretty impressive.
So it's going to cost $98 a year, and it appears to include some really cool perks, at least reported by Recode. Same-day delivery of groceries and general merchandise, discounts on fuel at Walmart gas stations, and early access to special deals and promotions. We'll see if that takes away some of those special shopping days, if it takes some of that foot traffic away. Originally, the plan, we talked about, it was supposed to launch earlier. COVID-19, as with everything else, it ruined it. But factoid for you, Greg.
Yes.
Walmart's U.S. e-commerce sales is about 1/8 the size of Amazon's. Now, a big part of that gap, as you might expect, 150 million Amazon Prime members.
Yeah.
So, Greg, the $1 trillion question for you today: are you an Amazon Prime member? And if so, or even if you're not, does Walmart Plus appeal to you?
I am an Amazon Prime member, though I think a lot of people think I'm an Amazon hater. I am more of a Amazon challenger. I know they can do better, and as the leader in e-commerce industry, they need to. So just to clarify my position, I'm looking really closely at this.
Yes.
First of all, as in anything, Walmart has a 30% discount. Remember, Amazon Prime is now $129 a year, at least in the States, where it started at $99, apparently 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. A couple of really fascinating dynamics here. One is Walmart's e-commerce sales are 1/8 the size of Amazon's, but Walmart's sales are orders of magnitude higher than Amazon's in retail. So they've got that going for them. Also, every single store is a delivery station, and they are equipped to do so. I have done BOPIC, buy online, pick up in store, BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store at Walmart before, and they are unbelievably efficient. They started with trying to drive traffic through the store with the pickup in the back of the store and realized it was a different customer, and they moved it to the front of the store. They learn and act very, very fast. Walmart is an unbelievably efficient organization. Second observation, doesn't it seem like it was not that long ago that everyone hated Walmart and they were the most feared retailer on the planet? I remember people not wanting a Walmart in their neighborhood, right? Or talking about how Walmart was influencing governments to public domain, right? Certain properties and things like that. But now everybody's a Walmart fan. Why? Because it's a very competitive market, and I think it's prudent for shoppers, commerce, and supply chain professionals to want good, healthy, strong competition in any marketplace.
Yeah.
So,
well, plus they're unbelievable. I can't believe I'm gonna say this. They're a little bit of the underdog here, right? At least when it comes to e-commerce, a little
they're
bit.
not, but I mean, they're not really, but they are, let's call them a late starter, right?
Yeah.
Because Walmart has, they have, first of all, their retail is profitable, whereas Amazon's is not. Walmart knows retail. I mean, they changed the entire landscape of retail in the States, and they're doing so around the world as well. So I think people perceive them as an underdog. I would consider them more of a late bloomer, but I could see where you would get that, right?
At least, yeah. I think there's some elements. Regardless, it's a great story. Regardless, it enhanced competition should make e-commerce even stronger and more consumer focused, which Amazon's done a lot of good things for. So we'll see how it plays out. I know this is like covering a pennant chase if you're a baseball fan.
It is, and it's so tight, right?
Yeah.
Amazon's or Walmart's e-commerce sales were up over 70%, have been up over 70% since COVID started. Additionally, by the way, the marketplace that Walmart has is virtually identical to what Amazon does. They already have companies that sell goods that you can't buy in a Walmart store on their marketplace. So they're very well equipped. And let's not forget also the recent discussion we had just last week that they have partnered with Shopify, who also has a tremendous amount of online capability and is establishing third-party, or let's call it fulfillment logistics. It may not be considered third-party, fulfillment logistics to compete directly with Amazon fulfillment as well.
All right. So real quick, before we move to the next story, I want to recognize a few folks here. MTS. Hey guys, it's Supply Chain Now. Love your efforts in bringing amazing guests. I agree with you. I'm looking forward to Kevin. Had a great time with Tevin last week, and great to have you here with us live via LinkedIn. We had our first, let's see here. Let's recognize Nakota ETN. First time catching us live. Excited to be here. Great to have you here. Looking forward to your perspective and observations here on the show. And let's see, one more. Jason Moss. Jason, friend of the show, founder and CEO of the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance. Great to have you with us here, Jason,
no doubt.
as always.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Let's move right along to the next story, and we're going to take the Reader's Digest version of this one, maybe, Greg. We'll see, so we can hit Kevin right on time. All right, so in our second headline, a new grocery delivery robot may be flying over your head in the upcoming months. Rouse's Market. My first time hearing this. Greg, not sure if you ever heard of Rouse's Market.
Heard of them. Yeah.
They're testing a grocery delivery drone program this fall, according to this story that comes to us from Supply Chain Dive. The limited scope program is going to focus on one of the company's grocery stores in Mobile, Alabama. CEO Donnie Rouse says the groceries will be delivered in 30 minutes or less, kind of taking a page from the old Domino's pizza days. They've partnered with Deuce Drone, which is a Boston-based technology company. And if successful, who knows, it may take off like Google Wing has. Google Wing has been delivering groceries in Australia, Virginia, and Finland for about a year or so. The company reported that usage was up over 500% between February and April 2020, of course, due to the pandemic. Customers were using Google Wing for a short list of items. Now, some of these early items, which I'm going to share with you, are to be expected. Bread, eggs, milk, toilet paper, which, by the way,
especially toilet paper.
Yes. Toilet paper spiked at, according to Business Insider earlier, 845% over typical demand when that was all the rage a few months back. Coffee, of course. But get this. Rotisserie chickens and sushi are some of the most commonly carried products via Google Wing in those markets. Now, hey, maybe I'm a little bit slow here, and I'm not sure how fast these drones move, but I'm thinking if a drone is taking rotisserie chicken over the skies, you've got some hawks and some eagles that may take a more vested interest in drone technology. I don't know. Could be just me.
It suddenly becomes it suddenly becomes prey,
Right.
right?
All right.
I
So
had not thought about that.
So
Well, and
here's
sushi, I just don't do takeout sushi.
right.
You know, I lived in Arizona long enough when the chains there would not do takeout sushi during certain months.
Yes.
I get it.
Well, get this. One of the main concerns that polling has shown, and really you're doing some foreshadowing there.
Oh,
Consumers are worried that drone delivery will or won't protect the temperature needs of fresh produce or meat. So I was surprised to see sushi on that list.
yeah, that was my immediate question was around that temperature
But
protection.
we shall see if Deuce Drone has the chops to pull this off in Alabama. So,
But I'm fine.
all right. So, Greg.
Now, I think it's important for us to recognize just really quickly, a drone doesn't necessarily mean flying. We always think of flying.
Good point.
A drone is anything that is remotely controlled or automatically controlled. So that could be an on ground. It sounds like if it's like Google Wing, then it probably is a flying drone, and maybe it flies with a container that's temperature controlled. It's a good question.
Well, Jason Moss shares, hey, how come beer is not on that list of? That's a great question, Jason. We're gonna have to dive in with Malcolm.
Yeah, frankly, that was my biggest. That was the thing that caused my concern around temperature control was if they can deliver beer.
Yep.
Now, state laws, particularly in Alabama, might preclude that. But well, I mean, you have to check ID, right?
Yes. So, Greg, I think what we'll do here, I want to get you to weigh in just a little bit more on this story.
Yep.
And then we're going to hold the third headline until after Kevin joins us, which I don't think will be a problem. But real quick, before we welcome in Kevin L. Jackson with SourceConnecte, Greg, what else about this development and Rouse's market in Mobile, Alabama? What else stands out?
So a couple things. One, surprise, never heard of Rouse's market. And that tells you how far drone technology has come, that we aren't talking about Kroger or Publix or whomever, right? Wegmans or whatever. It is that pervasive that it is in Rouse's market. And second, not surprised at Mobile, Alabama. So one of the most sophisticated Amazon facilities I ever worked at when I was working with Amazon was in Mobile, Alabama, called a delivery station. It's kind of the last step. So Mobile is actually a hot test bed for these kind of technologies. The scale of the community is smaller. It's a fairly compact community, but not tremendously highly populated and congested. Mm-hmm. So it allows them to work out the basics before they have to deal with New York City, Atlanta, LA kind of congestion. Yep.
It's good to know. Clay weighs in. Hey, they've made great target practice with these drones. We'll see if that plays out. So regardless, a great story.
Does that change the season for drones?
Hey, maybe we do have some fall sport.
Duck. Do they do it in duck season?
All right. So we are excited with today's featured guest to bring back a repeat guest. Kevin L. Jackson, Chief Operating Officer with SourceConnecte. Let's welcome Kevin in. Hey, Kevin, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. We're going drone hunting.
That's right. It's drone season, Kevin.
It's drone season. All right. I can't wait.
Well, Kevin, greetings. I know you're based in Northern Virginia area. It sounds like, I'm not sure if Google Wing is serving your neck of the woods or not, but clearly what Google is doing with its Wing service is resonating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the supply chain is really reaching down to the last mile. You remember when the telecommunications companies were trying to build out their infrastructure to reach that last mile, to get to the house, to get to the car, to get to the cell phone.
Right, for broadband, right?
Yeah, broadband. Now you're seeing that in supply chain with the digital expansion of supply chain.
it's a fascinating time to be both a consumer and in supply chain industry right now in 2020, even given the pandemic environment and all the challenges there that will make the industry stronger and better in the months to come. So, Kevin, speaking of pandemic, the last time we sat down with you was before the world changed here, at least in the States, back in late February in Arizona at the DIMSCA conference. Had a great interview. And I encourage folks, we should have included that episode link in the show notes, because Kevin has a fascinating story. Former naval aviator, former NASA team member and scientist and technologist. And now, of course, he's a e-commerce and technology entrepreneur. Just an incredible background. So listeners, check out his version. Maybe Clay and Amanda can put that in the comments. But, Kevin, want to start here today. Okay. Tell us in a nutshell, tell us more about SourceConnecte and what that is.
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to get away from what I used to do. So,
although that's pretty fascinating, and I bet a lot of people would like to talk about that, but you probably get that all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. But SourceConnecte is really an online B2B or business-to-business marketplace. And its purpose is to facilitate the discovery and engagement between global scale enterprise buyers and thoroughly vetted diverse suppliers. And I use that term thoroughly vetted as an important amplifier, because companies do business with companies that they know. And typically that takes a long time, a relationship to grow. But in today's world of accelerating business, you may not have time. And we've seen that with with COVID, right? Many companies needed to discover, find, and start doing business with companies that weren't traditionally in the healthcare industry very quickly. So they had to use information to vet these companies. So that's one reason why we actually launched SourceConnecte. It was publicly launched in April of 2020. And we want to maximize the participation of diverse businesses in global commerce. And we do that by curating and building a global ecosystem of trusted business entities. And all of this trust. It's not an easy word, right? So this trust is based on real data that has been verified by independent third parties. And we store this data in the Trust Your Supplier blockchain-enabled information repository. And this is really where the supply chain is going. Digitalization, blockchain-enabled information, and track and trace.
Hey, one quick question before we get you to weigh in on industry. Kevin, you're working, SourceConnecte is working with some very well-known names and companies, and then a lot of early stage companies and all points in between, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So our e-commerce platform is built on top of a blockchain-enabled database called the Inception Ledger. This is a silicon-based software as a service that we built on top. And we take product and service information, and it's stored and served from a tamper-proof blockchain-based repository. The product-centric approach really creates a platform that overcomes the competitive threats that businesses find when they try to sell online. And once again, this is not business to consumer. It's a completely different business model. It's business to business. So we have also teamed with IBM and their Rapid Supplier Connect in order to help small and medium-sized businesses participate and support our first responders and heroes in the healthcare industry to deal with the shortage of PPE. And we've also teamed with the SAP Ariba Discovery. So so both of these things really enhance our merchants' global visibility, and our digital marketing campaigns deliver over 10 million impressions monthly to our ecosystems members.
So interesting how this episode is sort of shaping up, Kevin. So we're going to talk, and maybe you can stick around if you got a minute.
Okay, sure.
We're going to talk about how RFID is being used along with blockchain for practical purposes. And Sylvia Judy, who has taken some time from making jam to join us, also a supply chain pro, says amazing technology with real purpose. So this verification and validation and connection of all of these vendors, that's a great service to do, because especially as we've all, well, the three of us and David Burton have discussed, in terms of having a diverse supply network, it's difficult sometimes for companies to find these suppliers and then to verify them and all of that sort of thing. And they usually have a separate kind of process that can be well-meaning but not well-serving at times of the process.
Absolutely. And it's paper-based, and it takes from 60 to 90 days.
Right.
And the way to shorten that sales cycle and buy cycle is with information and data. So data from things like RFID can make the buyer more comfortable that they're going to get their products. There are so many stories out there where a buyer will put money online for important PPE just to find out that it's never delivered, because there's no way to track it. And the information about the seller's past and their most recent exchanges can be provided via this blockchain-enabled information ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the data that's tracking products and services, when it's combined with data about the suppliers and the buyers as well, can build that trusted supply chain.
And that's key. As you said earlier, the key word is trust, right? So aside from blockchain and what you're doing at SourceConnecte, which I love, tell us what other kind of supply chain issues or technologies or challenges or innovations have caught your attention lately.
Well, this COVID is the first time that the entire world has participated in a major global event simultaneously in an environment where we can discuss this at the same time, in real time. And what that has done is really highlight the lag that we experience in the supply chain. And the way to fix that lag is through information and data. But because the supply chain is kind of slow and antiquated, what we're seeing now are financiers, actually brokers and investors that are operating on modern digital platforms. And they are seeing PPE as commodities. So they're stepping in and they're buying, nitrile gloves like it's gold. And there are setting commissions and price points that are really affecting the supply chain of how these essential products can be delivered. That's because they are operating on information and data, whereas your traditional supply chain members are operating on antiquated tools like pencil and paper and telephone. So when large countries like the United States and Brazil and India are really reeling from this what many are calling the second wave of Corona, while the supply chain industry is investing in newer technologies. It's not here now. So that's why what we're going through right now is a renaissance for supply chain. You know, the eyes are wide open now. They understand that it's all about digitization and online B2B commerce.
It's again amazing time. The transformation that's taking place, both as you say, the business to business. You know, I think, and Greg, just thinking out loud here, we probably spent a lot of time focused on kind of the consumer facing side of supply chain. But I love hearing about the innovations taking place on that business to business side within that trust, you know, building that trusted supply chain, as Kevin spoke about. All right, for the sake of time, Kevin, we'll have to bring you back and dive in deeper into all the cool things that's going on with SourceConnecte and that space. Let's talk about this Wednesday. We've got a big event coming up, and we've appreciated SourceConnecte sponsoring it. It's a very frank conversation. SourceConnecte sponsorship has allowed Supply Chain Now to provide a grant to the great supply chain program over at Morgan State University. So we appreciate your generosity. Equally as important, though, is this frank discussion that we are very honored to just help facilitate, right? We've gathered a great panel. We've got a lot of folks already registered that will be weighing in from the audience. And Kevin, just simple question to you. Why is it so important from where you sit to have the uncomfortable conversations and really get real frank with each other in the information and perspective exchange on race?
Well, human capital is the most important resource we all have. And if we as an industry are not leveraging the human capital that's available in diverse businesses to the maximum extent, we are handicapping ourselves. You need to realize that in the United States, as in many countries, most business is done by small businesses, you know, that are 2 to 3 people, many of them just a single person. And during COVID, many of these small businesses was really the lifeline that hospitals and first responders needed in order to fill in the holes where the supply chain faltered. And diverse businesses, not just minority-owned businesses, but women-owned businesses, LGBTQ-owned businesses. These businesses jumped in, stepped in, and delivered the goods. But they weren't part of the traditional big business healthcare network. So it was difficult for the United States, for example, as a country to really pivot to attack and protect the country. So this week's event will address that. You know, some say that there is no, racism in the modern world. That's not true. We still have racism.
Some people say that, Kevin.
All you can do is smile sometimes, right?
Yeah, right. So these may be uncomfortable conversations, but they are needed to move forward.
Amen.
So let's all get together this week, and I applaud Supply Chain Now for once again, taking the lead in this important topic.
Thank you. Thanks for what you shared there. Thanks for your support. It's great to collaborate with you once again, Kevin. I don't want to speak for Greg, but speaking for our team, we're going in. I wish we had more answers, and as in these challenging times where we're digesting so much at once, and with change that has to take place, I've tried to double down just personally on learning and relearning and challenging assumptions. So going into a conversation like we've got teed up on Wednesday, just to help facilitate, I'm really looking forward to learning a ton myself. And Greg, what, as you get ready to move into Wednesday, what are some initial thoughts you have?
Well, yeah, I will speak for myself. I come from a fairly diverse family. I don't really look like it, but I do. and I come from a diverse community, Wichita, Kansas, which you would also not suspect, but and it was just sort of matter of fact for me. And the thing that I believe that really moves the ball forward the most on this is sit down and have a conversation, or better yet, a meal with someone you don't know, doesn't look like you, doesn't sound like you, doesn't live like you. And that level of understanding is what it really takes. And that's what we're really after on Wednesday.
Yeah, great. Well put, Greg and Kevin. Okay, so Kevin, final question. Again, really appreciate your collaboration, your thought leadership, and just kindred spirits that I've felt since our first time together in Arizona. How can folks connect with you in general? And then in a very small Reader's Digest version, tell us about the event y'all got coming up in August.
Yeah.
Well, sure. So as you can imagine, I'm on LinkedIn, Kevin L. Jackson, and on Twitter at Kevin_Jackson. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, or just Google Kevin L. Jackson. And August is really an important event for us as well. 4th and 5th, we'll be participating in the National Virtual Small Business Expo. This is an online event designed for B2B, for companies to learn about other companies and to understand and build business network. And SourceConnecte is actually going to be having a virtual mixer where you can come from the comfort of your laptop and meet other business owners and share business cards and discuss. We're also going to have a panel of corporate buyers. So I'll also be remiss in not highlighting the fact that we are honored to have Supply Chain Now as our media sponsor for the National Small Business Expo, August 4th and 5th. So I'll see you there.
Absolutely.
We love what you're doing, Kevin. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the chance to continue to partner with you and really learn from you, learn from all your experience and what you're doing now. So, hey, real quick before you go, Kevin, Claudia Freed, I think we've got a new T-shirt ism that you contribute this time. This quote: "Human capital is the most important capital we have." Outstanding, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll see you on Wednesday, of course, at the Stand Up and Shout Sound Off event. And of course, we'll see you in early August at your event. And to our listeners, we made it easy for you to be able to connect with Kevin. So check that out in the show notes. And thanks so much, Kevin L. Jackson, COO with SourceConnecte.
Hey, can't wait to be back again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Take care, man.
All right. That's a tough aspect of today's buzz to kind of move on to the next portion. I mean, there's so much that we could have dove in deeper with Kevin on a variety of levels too, Greg. And Greg, also appreciate what you shared. You know, it's so important that we speak with our unique individual voice in these complex times, issues, challenges. I don't know. But I appreciate the opportunity to tackle Wednesday's conversation and facilitate it with you as my co-host.
Yeah, well, thank you. I can't think of a better person to facilitate it than you. I mean, your approach to it is it's mature, it's thoughtful, and caring, and that's what's so important about these times. You can't hate somebody you've sat down and talked to. Right?
Yeah.
So sit down and talk to more people.
Absolutely. Seek first to understand. Okay. So on a much lighter note, and before we dive into this third headline here, let's say hello to a few folks.
Yeah.
Gosh. So I can't do it justice pulling these comments over.
The conversation about Sylvia's jam. Yes. And Nirfad, as usual, has not only a funny twist, but also a knowledgeable conversation. Right. So check out the live comments, especially on LinkedIn. That's where they seem to be the most live.
I'm convinced Sylvia's closed the deal. And
Yeah.
Nerfad, as he says, book it and send me the load confirmation.
Well, so I was following that just a little bit. Not only did she sell him, she also, and this is a sales lesson, maybe we'll have Jamin use Sylvia as an example, but she also moved him from the product that he wanted, which I believe was BlackBerry, to Peach, which she had. So awesome. Upsell, resell, change of direction there.
Yeah, sell what you have on hand.
Yeah,
all
that's right.
So great to have you join us once again, Sylvia and Nerfad. Appreciate the lighthearted conversation you bring into the comments. Okay,
very supply chain relevant.
Yes. Okay, Stefan says he agrees any kind of exclusion of a person for one way or another limits growth of any kind. But on the flip side, forced quota also does that. The change has to be organic. Good comments there from Stefan. It's never easy, right? None of this change that's got to take place is going to be easy.
Right? It has to be genuine.
So this is the first time I think Sarbjeet has been with us here. So if you recall, Greg, Sarbjeet, he also does podcasts and live streams, offers a lot of thought leadership. We worked together and collaborated with Sarbjeet on the Sapphire Now event. And Sarbjeet, I'm not sure if you saw it over the weekend, but based on his recommendation, or at least a few comments around the movie The Green Book, my wife and I watched it over the weekend, loved it. It's got a great mix of lessons, important life lessons learned, and humor. And the actors in the actors and actresses do such a great job. So Sarbjeet, I doubt you realize that your one tweet had much of an impact, maybe, but we acted on that and really enjoyed the movie. Greg, I think you'd seen that a year or so ago.
Yeah, Netflix ought to give him affiliate fees or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. All right. So on that note, let's go back. Let's tackle our third issue here today. Folks are evidently doubling down on RFID in the fight against COVID-19. So Greg, please tell them more.
What a great example of using established, to be kind, RFID is established, well-established technology and new technology. And because RFID is so established, the cost has come down, right? And that makes it a lot more practical. We were joking with and about Tyson Steffens. They're using RFID and other near field products to communicate with their pallet positions and condition and things like that. But look, retail, manufacturing, distribution, airlines have recently used it for logistics and baggage tracking, and then of course healthcare. Right, COVID-19 hits, and exactly the discussion that that Kevin was just talking about. David's his cohort at SourceConnecte. But exactly what he's talking about. So many people are diving into PPE, and it's such an issue in terms of sourcing when the entire world needs to source the same products at the same time. So what RFID is being used for in healthcare for COVID-19 specifically is, for instance, there are microchips embedded to track and authenticate products, and they're assuring that healthcare professionals are adhering to hygiene practices and protocols. So let me give you an example, a specific example, and we'll talk about some of the dynamics of how this is working. So Suku partnered with a company called SmartTrack, so that RFID data feeds into a digital identification platform by Avery Dennison. Yes, Avery Dennison, the paper and office supply company, now also a data company, that integrates with Suku's blockchain-based supply chain application. So the RFID tags allow things like test kits to be authenticated as FDA approved, Food and Drug Administration, U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved, and from a legitimate source being key, right? There are now many, many sources. And as we've talked about with some of the folks that are getting into PPE, either distribution or brokering, as Kevin was talking about, corruption runs amok in the industry right now, particularly for PPE. So what this partnership does specifically is it provides approved suppliers with these near field communication RFID tags to use on the specific products like test kits. Literally every single test kit can be tagged, and they can further do it so that it's for a specified manufacturing run. You, Mr. Approved Vendor, get 10,000 approved tags so that your production manager, when she kicks off the production line, she can only run 10,000 that have been pre-approved. So RFID tracks the product and blockchain verifies and approves it. So the blockchain, as Kevin was talking about, it's an immutable and inalterable record. So once the blockchain has the record, think of it as all that paper that Kevin was talking about. Once the blockchain has the record, it's forever as it was submitted. No one can scratch out the name and put in their name or anything like that. And that's really the value of blockchain, is verification. So you tie that with what you know about the product on an RFID tag, because it has a ton of data. It also can tell you where the product is. And then you've got the ability to move product, verify its mobility and that sort of thing, and create this inalterable record of movement and verification and validation. And my favorite, and Chris Barnes' favorite word, provenance. So that allows you to continually deal with the handoffs even in the supply chain. Because one of the discussions that I've been having with a very good friend, former Amazon, Apple, Radial executive, is even with blockchain, we're still trusting the handoff to human hands. But if we make the handoff using electronic means like RFID, then it's much more traceable and much more reliable. So think of it this way: RFID is a great data capture and communication device, and blockchain is an inalterable record for that provenance and authenticity and chain of custody that we need. The combination is very, very powerful, and it's a really good practical example of how these two technologies working together can enhance supply chain and even save lives.
Love it. And another great article delivered by our friends over at Supply Chain Dive.
Man.
Good stuff there. All right. So Greg, moving right along, and I appreciate your deep dive on what we're seeing in the RFID and technology space and the battle against COVID-19. Let's recognize a few comments. And I took the graphic away for a second so that hopefully these comments are a little bit bigger. So let's say, so Benjamin Goldklang says what we've heard 1,000 times: everything is sales. Well put, as always. So along those lines, Sylvia Judy says that she learned from the best, that her mother sold fine china in Hamburg's most prestigious department store, Osterhaus. And she is a sales genius. Well, maybe we need to bring Sylvia and her mom
and
on
her
for an
mother.
episode.
Yes, absolutely.
And I believe her mother
we
just
need Stefan to translate. My German is still in the works, but ja, kann ich nur ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen.
Wow, I'm impressed. Maybe too easily so, but I'm impressed.
All I
Greg.
said was I can only speak a little German.
All right. Our buddy Fred Tolbert, always one of our favorite Buzz attendees, says Supply Chain Now is providing groundbreaking content with Wednesday's show, talking about our stand-up and sound-off. Looking forward to it. Fred, we appreciate that. Looking forward to your contributions there from a webinar guru, which Fred has been on that circuit for a while. And Fred, looking forward to your
guru too.
That's right. For your next couple of appearances with us. Stefan weighs in here. He says, RFID, my car wash place uses it for the Fast Pass. That not being special, but just think about the context you in regards to COVID-19, not touching the screen to select the option, not touching the card slot, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm with you. That touchless approach to conducting the transaction, much less whatever they're touting as your car goes through. That's equally as valuable. Good stuff there, Stefan. And then Tyson says, and I'm not sure if you said this or Kevin, but he hates the use of the word tranches. And then Tyson says, but
Like
he uses it.
Moist.
Tyson says he uses it as often as possible. So on that note, and I think that got us caught up here. So I couldn't hit everybody, but so much good stuff. I think everybody is ready clearly for the week of July 13th. So
They are on point today.
They are on point today. All right, let's talk some good news, Greg. Some really good news. So how about beef and pork supply chains finally catching up? According to Michael Natvo over at Farm Bureau, slaughter rates are returning to near normal in the beef and pork industry. Mm-hmm. So, of course, anyone that's watched this show or heard a lot of our programming, we really track the meat industry quite a bit on The Buzz and some of our other episodes. And as many folks will recall, two big factors put a huge squeeze on how much beef and pork we saw, or how little maybe we saw in supermarkets here in recent months. First, our favorite thing to point out, Greg, historic demand, historic seismic shifting, all-time record levels of demand.
Yep.
As consumers, as it relates to a lot of groceries and meat products, they were filling up their freezers, filling up their pantries. They couldn't get enough. Secondly, though, from a supply standpoint, slaughterhouses were going offline, many, for weeks at a time due to COVID-19 kind of micro outbreaks in each of these big plants. So you had demand off the charts and supply was really getting staggered. I think supply for beef and pork each hit 35% less than a year earlier. I think is a data point I saw earlier over the weekend. So the lower throughput levels led to a ton of livestock still on the farms, right? You had that constraint. And unfortunately, we had to destroy a lot of livestock, which hopefully we can avoid. Moving forward, we can figure out a way to avoid that. So all of this has changed, though. We're seeing slaughter throughput levels have rebounded more quickly than most analysts even predicted. If you recall, Greg, it was probably a month or so ago, some of the analysts said that we were going to be dealing with beef and pork challenges into 2021. So they've rebounded quickly. There's still a backlog of animals. That's still the case, right? From farms to slaughterhouses. So maintaining these high throughput levels are going to be really important. But look at demand now, especially now that we're past July 4th, which, everyone barbecues or does a gathering or something. Well, typically the next couple of months after July 4th, we do see soft demand. And coming off these historic highs from a month or two ago, it's going to feel even softer. But one big development that a lot of beef or a lot of meat companies, meat providers are tracking, keeping their finger on the pulse of, is whether or not schools and colleges and universities reopen or don't reopen. Of course, if they reopen and students are back, their cafeterias and institution, they're going to need a lot more beef and pork, especially what they call middle meat, which is typically not what is really bought and sold in supermarkets, but it's for institutional food applications. So it's good news, right? We're seeing a more consistent level of supply after, especially coming off where your quantities were being limited, and you'd walk through the meat aisle and you just have that visual kind of shock to the psyche, right?
Soviet Union feeling. Yes.
Right. So, but a lot of good news. And, Greg, I know we've said it 1,000 times, but it's just so incredible how fast things can evolve supply and demand wise in the world of supply chain. What sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, the working conditions are hardly more pleasant for human beings than they are for the animals, in fact. And that led to a lot of the issue. The people literally work shoulder to shoulder in those plants. I don't see that as sustainable, but that particular means of working. But they've somehow managed to get production back up, but I think it also has had something to do with the fact that, as you said, Scott, demand has softened, right?
Yep.
So, and who knows if we, how we'll eat. I know people are eating meats. If the meat processors and packers and butchers if they're hoping for schools and institutions to save them, they are wishing on a star.
That's a good song.
I can tell you that the fact that Harvard is going completely virtual, and that my youngest daughter's university is giving her or professors currently the option to have in-person or remote classes, tells me that no one is committed to going back in person. And if anyone has followed any news around the world at all, they probably know what's going on in the States in terms of getting even elementary, and pre-college age kids into school. So it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to do my part. I can assure you of that. And
I know what you're going to say. By consuming plenty of beef and pork, you're still on the page.
Yeah. My youngest brother will do his part by not. He's vegan. So he's my carbon offset. That's the way I look at it.
There you go. I love that. Well, you and Nurfad are kindred spirits. So Nurfad says, I have an affinity for beef for all of you beef shippers. If you have overstock, send to me all of your extras. I will handle the retail side of things, and I'll send you free advertising of your meat on my smoker and barbecue. That is awful kind of you, Nurfad.
Yeah. Well, also look at Clay. I did not know this. So the dogs are bringing the dog back on campus. So, we probably should know that. I'm sure he said that, but it did not register until this very moment that they will be back on campus. So that will be interesting. I know that they'll be making the appropriate provisions, but it will likely have some benefit in terms of, certainly in terms of the economy in Athens, Georgia.
Right. Sure.
To get those kids back on campus.
Those college towns like Athens, like Clemson up the road, I mean, they depend on the student economy, so to speak. So we'll see how all that plays out. Okay. But most importantly, steps taking place, creeping back to normal. Of course, we pray for everyone's health and safety, but hopefully these are good signs of things to come. All right. So let's stick with the meat industry in our fifth and final story here, Greg. I found some of these things expected when it comes to more automation, which is set to proliferate in the beef, pork, and chicken production
this
circles.
Might very well be the answer to the question we just posed in the last article, right? So, yeah.
Good point. Good point. So, as reported by Wall Street Journal, an industry leader, really a couple, is turning to robots. So let's set the table a bit here, because I think as Greg started to share a few things about the meat industry, it's really important to have that context. So production processes and slaughterhouses, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, you name it, heavily for years has relied on manual labor for generations. And, it's a dangerous environment. I mean, a lot of it is manual cutting. In some cases, it's high speed automated cutting, but a lot of blades, a lot of moving pieces, and of course you got to meet throughput levels just for sheer demand. Typically the levels, as Greg was talking about, the levels of worker density are amongst the highest in industry. Y'all check out the chart here I've got on the visual. So according to the data in this article, over 3 employees per 1,000 square feet, which puts it at the top of all the industries that they had data on. Now, that's probably skewed because I'm sure there's frozen warehouse space that probably they had to lump into the data. If you've seen any of these poultry lines or production lines, or if you've ever had the opportunity, good or bad, to tour one of these facilities, you'll see exactly what Greg was talking to, shoulder to shoulder, production lines, and things are moving fast. And then when you think about implementing, Greg, physical distancing during the pandemic and just how much that changed, capacity and throughput, and they had to manage, they were all trying to manage the safety of the workforce. There was so many moving pieces here when it comes to this industry. So that's when we saw plants go offline, and many had to shut down for a couple of weeks, that obligatory, time frame they had to wait out due to these workforce infections. So that, with that context, Greg, anything else you want to add in terms of kind of the industry and what these environments are like before we kind of dive into them?
We know they either perceived or felt compelled to speak that they were near a tipping point, because I think we gave John Tyson quite a dressing down some weeks ago about saying the supply chain is breaking. Now, that was in the chicken industry, right? I believe that he was speaking maybe not only to chicken, and there was some. So I don't know if anybody followed that on LinkedIn, but I know that 13,000 or so people did, and hundreds of them felt compelled to comment on it. There was some speculation that John, the chairman of Tyson, may have been trying to manipulate the market some. I didn't even follow up to see whether that happened or not. I don't know, but the fact is that he felt compelled to enunciate that was reflecting on their ability, at least his belief in their ability to deliver, right? And that the company needed a boost in one way or another. It has been an issue. It's a dangerous workplace, as you said, for humans. It's, if you've ever watched a YouTube video, it's better not to. It is shoulder to shoulder work in a dangerous environment at a high speed. So I think if this, we talk a lot about robotics and what the real value of robotics is. And the value is not in replacing human jobs. It is in elevating people into human jobs that aren't as dangerous, that aren't as unhealthy, that aren't as mundane or repetitive, right?
Yes.
So hopefully they can find a way to do this. I think
well put.
They most certainly can.
So before we even got to automation, you got to think of all the millions of dollars that each of these meat companies spent on safety equipment and thermal scanners and workplace partitions. Just how much of a shift, what massive shift for operations in general as they really double down on trying to protect the workforce.
Yep.
So that was, of course, the reactive measure. And so, Greg, you and I both know supply chain leaders, effective ones, try to get out of firefighting mode and out of reactive mode and try to root cause, analyze exactly what took place so they can avoid it. So the question many of these companies and their leadership were asking themselves is, how can we avoid this happening again? Well, there's no easy answer, especially in these complex, these environments which have to work so fast just to meet demand. But here are some next steps. They already had, some companies were already going down the path. There's two examples the article really focuses on. And at Tyson, who you were talking about earlier, a team that includes former auto industry engineers and designers. Well, they've been developing an automated deboning system that will handle some portion of the roughly 39 million chickens that are processed each week in Tyson plants alone.
Wow.
That is mind-boggling.
It is.
This project is part of the roughly $500 million that Tyson has been investing in technology and automation going back a few years. So the steps were already in place. The pandemic probably answered the question why for so many folks that maybe didn't get it earlier. And CEO Noel White says that this type of investment will increase in the years to come, given recent pandemic experiences. So, but the trickiest part, Greg, I don't know if you ever done any butchering. I haven't, but I'm an expert article reader. Perhaps the trickiest part is maximizing the yield per animal, right? I mean, you got to think there is a trainable skill, but there's also a great science and like an art to this. High skilled employees still hold the advantage, but the gap is seemingly closing. So Pilgrim's Pride, which is the second biggest U.S. chicken processor, has implemented boning machines for years. These machines now trail humans by only 1 to 1.5% in terms of meat yield per chicken. So that gap is closing, right?
Yeah, and my guess that gap exists because that's old technology, because the gap, it can easily be closed by the technology that exists today, right?
Yes, agreed.
It's impossible. I mean, let's face it. We all want to believe that our job is secure, but the fact is, it is impossible. This goes back to John Henry, right? It is impossible for us to be as precise as a device. So I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but the device has to exist, and the will has to be there to put it into play. And the truth is, in some measure, amazingly, some of these companies are being community aware, and they don't want to replace workers and devastate yet more rural communities, which is where a lot of these facilities exist, or smaller communities, and put everyone out of work at once. So they are, I'm sure, intentionally metering in the way that they that they undertake this. But
so check out, to our listeners, check out this article. This article is a really comprehensive research and deep piece. I kind of just was able to take some of the highlights, but lots of transformation taking place right during these times in this very traditional and long resistance to change on some level industry, being the meat industry, part of the very important food supply chain. Good stuff. So Greg, we are already over 6 minutes here, but I'm going to ask you before I sign off, what is your one big thing as we wrap up this edition of the Supply Chain Buzz on July 13th?
Well, this was a lot about technology, and it was a lot about the positive impact of technology. And the thing that resonates with me about some of this news and what Kevin said, and what Kevin's organization does, and some of the comments that we've gotten from the viewers, is that there is nothing to fear from technology, right? First of all, again, I will repeat this, the largest generation in the history of the planet is leaving the workforce at the rate of 10,000 a day on average. And I would argue that at this point, probably at a much, much greater level, they've got to be saying, what am I working for at this point, right? So many baby boomers, and population decline worldwide is now inevitable. So we have to have technologies to help us to do these things. We demand, frankly, safety. We demand health, and we demand, and especially in this COVID environment, we demand spacing and workplace room, which means more robotics, right? Our friends at Geek Plus had this is one of my favorite drones of all, is a drone, a robotic drone that goes through an office building at night and shoots the place with UV rays to kill germs and that sort of thing. So those kind of things in this latest example of being able to now, with today's technology, to be more efficient than a human being, I'm glad for it, frankly. That allows us to do those jobs that frankly pay more, are safer, and do still require and will still require human intervention or even human primary action for years, maybe even decades to come. Welding is a great example of that. Yep.
I wonder if they offer a residential version of one of those UV ray shooting machines. We'd love to have one here and experiment one with 3 kids that run around the house.
Well, they do sell, not a robotic one, but they do sell little lights. We have one. It's not exactly, we weren't exactly using it for that purpose, maybe for some rowdy dogs who might.
Yeah. Oh, major. All right. Well, to our audience, thanks so much for tuning in here today. I know we ran a little bit long. Loved all the comments that we could get to. I wish we could have gotten to even more of the comments here today. Something that, when you do a live stream, you try to get everything right, especially people's names. And I don't want to make light. When Greg and I on the front end, we're trying to say hello to folks. That's really important to us. Mm-hmm. And for folks, especially for anyone that tunes in, If we got your name wrong, please shoot us a note. We want to get all of that right.
We are
shoot us a
all
note.
about phonetic spellings. We are happy to comply, no doubt.
Absolutely. And the email for that is the same as, if you can't find something we talked about here today, shoot our CMO a note, Amanda@supplychainnowradio.com. Let us know how we can help. Let us know how we can get pronunciation right. But if there's something you can't find via our website or what have you, shoot us a note and we'll help as much as we can. Join us for Wednesday's Stand Up and Sound Off, where we're having a frank discussion on race and industry. You can sign up for that at no charge at supplychainnowradio.com. We welcome and we really want to hear what's between your ears on this tough topic. Greg, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I think we put the links in the live comments here.
Yes.
On all the platforms, and we'll put them in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
And there they go again. Look at that.
That's a great call out.
What a great team.
That's right. Check us out, supplychainnowradio.com. Check out the 400th podcast episode we published today. Hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I loved hearing from the team on that. We need to have one of those regularly. The challenge we're going to throw out there that we always do, again, we're challenging ourselves as much as we're challenging our audience, but that is to do good, give forward, and be the change that's needed here in 2020 and beyond. And on that note, we'll see you next time on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.